959 the bounce, and we're going to start with my Sanskrit proverb that I'm going to start every day, and it goes, look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. It is brief course, in its brief course lie all the realities and verities of existence, the bliss of growth, the splendor of action, the glory of power. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. I always say that today is the best day of my life. I cannot change yesterday. Tomorrow is guaranteed. But if I live right today and now, then I don't have to worry about my yesterdays and my tomorrows. And our goal here on Talk Back Natchitoches evening is to collectively make Natchitoches a better place for all of us. The listening audience can participate by calling in at 318-354-7712. We would like to be a catalyst to facilitate positive dialogue and action. It's my honor to introduce as my guest this evening, Chief Natchitoches Collins, who have taken time out of his busy schedule to be with us. Good evening, Chief, and welcome to Talk Back Natchitoches evening. It certainly is an honor to have you here, and let's get into it. Would you like to make an opening statement and say hi to the audience first before I get to asking you all these questions I have for you?
Well, as always, I enjoy the opportunity to actually speak on what we've got going on in Natchitoches. I enjoy having the opportunity to serve the public and try to move our department in an onward and upward way. So to try to improve, to help bond, and make partnerships with people in the community, as well as tear down some of the barriers that may be out there because of just false information or through just people's mindset and being closed-minded. So it's an opportunity to meet us and lead us.
Well, let me start off by giving you a little personal background. I attended Los Angeles City College and West Coast University. When I attended West Coast University, I was dealing with computer data processing at the time and was doing some applied mathematics courses there. However, the only courses that I finished in college were my police science courses that I took at Los Angeles City College. At one time, I had passed everything. I passed the physical agility test. I passed all the tests. I passed the oral exam and everything. But the only thing that kept me from becoming a Los Angeles policeman was my draft classification. And I think that was Chief Gates back. I think he had took Chief Parker's place. This is back in the 60s. And most of the recruits at that time were ex-military men that they were bringing on to the force and stuff. They wanted people with military background. However, for some reason, I was classified 1Y. And 1Y was for some kind of physical disability I've come to learn. I didn't go back. I couldn't join the police department because they wanted me to go back to the draft board and get my classification changed. And my brother, who was a United States Marine who had served in the Korean War and then served as an advisor in Vietnam. And when he was an advisor in Vietnam, they didn't even call it Vietnam back in those days, Chief. They called it French Indochina. And he was an advisor after the French was run out of Vietnam after the fall of Dien Bien Phu in 1954. I remember that date because that was the same date that the boat, Brown versus the Board of Education, was passed that did with the integrations of school and land. And fast forward to Los Angeles, from Los Angeles to Houston. When I moved to Houston, they were having serious problems with the police department. one of the big case was a young man that was killed by the Houston Police Department, and they said that he had a gun when they shot him, and come to find out that the gun he had been taken out of the police property room, and it was a throwdown gun. You may have heard that term. They shot him and then put this gun to say that he was armed, and they found that out. And a little later on, there was a Hispanic, a Mexican American by the name of Jose Torres. He was handcuffed when they threw him in the bayou, Chocolate Bayou in Houston, Texas. That was police brutality. And then Kathy Whitmire became mayor, and she hired Lee Brown. You may have heard of Lee Brown. Lee Brown was the public safety director in Atlanta before going to Houston. That was back when Wayne, this guy, you know, had killed all those kids. Lee Brown was the public safety director at that time. And I used to associate with Chief Brown, who had a PhD in criminology and was really, really big on community policing. Then I moved to Dallas. And when I moved to Dallas, I got my media credentials from a chief of police in Dallas by the name of William Ratburn. Now, William Ratburn, when he left the Dallas Police Department, he became head of security for the 1996 Olympic in Atlanta, Georgia. And so, I'm familiar with police. I told the mayor yesterday, I don't want to live in a town that don't have police or churches. And so, I'm always been a big backer of the blue. And we need, as a community, to really, really be involved with our police department, and hopefully we can get people more involved now, Chief, than what they have been. This code of silence amongst our citizenry needs to stop. I mean, they need to, to expose these people that have done these really negative things and given our community a bad name. And I know that recently, all over the country, in spite of what is being said that is happening in Minneapolis and what have you, crime has been going down. But can you give us some stats as to where we stand today in compared to where we was?
Yes, sir. You know, we have the obligation to be transparent and give what the facts are. And even though it's the perception that crime has been increasing, and it's usually because of the fact that people will hear about something and they react to that. But when there is positive news, you often don't hear that. We can go back to just July, where we had an unfortunate circumstance that happened where someone lost their life, but that was right after the city put out that they had several months. At the first of the year, we had not had one homicide all the way to July. Most cities could not say that. They couldn't allude to that. And I think that was because of concerted effort made by local law enforcement and other partners in addressing the needs. And also, I want to give kudos to the support of the citizens of Natchitoches, because believe it or not, some people have got to the point where they're tired of it. They're frustrated, and as a result, if we look at some of the stats from last year we had 3 homicides. One was by, 2 were by shooting, but one was more domestic related. One that happened, unfortunately, on a Kaiser at a business took place, but that was one of the typical type homicides we were seeing that were being perpetuated over the past couple of years. Gun violence by young adults making bad decisions. Among those 3, we had those 2 shootings, and then we had one that was by vehicle with another domestic situation. But that's amazing for a community that had 7 murders last year, 11 murders the year before. We had 3. And that's, once again, I want to commend the public and also the participation and the efforts made by our law enforcement, our police officers out there, our law enforcement officers doing what they were trained to do. And when we work in part and consort together, we're able to address those issues. Last year there were 1,503 arrests, adult arrests, 84 juvenile arrests. We had 2,623 126 offense reports that were filed compared to 3,121 last year. That means that was roughly 1,000, 1,500 or so cases fewer that we had to contend with. We had, among our calls for service, we had we had 18,679 calls for service. We had, compared to last year, which was 18,093. That was a 3% increase in calls for service, but those calls for service were us going out to help public with different events. Hey, could you do an escort with me? I just want you to make sure I get out at my house by, okay, and I'm not injured. When we look at some of the calls that we're typically used to, such as drug violations, we had 112% increase in the number of drug law violation calls. That's because we had an increase in the number of arrests being made. So there were 125 last year compared to the year before, 59. We had a 5% decrease in our drunks. We had an increase in a decrease in fatalities. We had only one compared to the year before of being 3. We had an increase of accidents. Now that's due to people being impatient and speeding and different things that we are focusing on as far as addressing. But there were 921 accidents with 785 the previous year. We had, as I reported, 2 homicides by shooting, 1 by vehicle, compared to the 7 that occurred the year previous. We had 14% decrease in aggravated batteries by cutting, with it being 6 compared to 7 the year before. We had 9 aggravated batteries by shooting, which was a 53% decrease compared to the year prior, which were 19. Simple batteries, we had assault. We had aggravated assaults decrease of 19%, 25 to compared to 31. We're going to go to our property crimes. We did have 972 burglary alarms compared to 1294, which is a decrease of 25. But business burglaries, we had 19 compared to 41. And theft from interior, because that's a crime that perpetuates people. What's happening, you have individuals, usually young individuals, that are breaking into vehicles looking for guns. We try to educate the public. Take your weapon, secure it. Even though you shouldn't have to worry about someone breaking in your car, you should just understand that that's what they're looking for. So if you secure it, that makes it that much harder for them to get their hands on it, because law enforcement's doing what they're supposed to. We're getting those illegal weapons out of their hands. We're making arrests when possible, and they don't have the weapons of violence to use against one another when they have a disagreement. And that's what's driving that violent force, because nowadays, if you have something readily accessible, you don't have that cooling off period where you can walk off, calm down, and go, we were arguing about something silly. When you have a weapon in your hand or right there on your hip, you think you have that fog and you use it. You can't take that back. It's not a video game. And so all too often we have these young adults, these individuals, use violence, and they commit a crime, and that crime often causes damage in our community, causes fear. And so the goal is to take those items away from them. Everyone who's entitled to have a weapon, Second Amendment, I'm all for it. But the thing is, we have to be responsible and make sure we secure them. I secure my weapons. I don't leave them in vehicles, even though they lock and they have lock boxes. Secure it. You wouldn't leave a bottle of medicine laying out on a counter if you know you got grandchildren or small children. Even though it's in a secured bottle, you would want to secure that and get it out of eyesight. So I just encourage the public to continue to do that, because that's so much help for us. But these thefts, we had 854 thefts compared to 597. That was a 43% increase. So auto thefts, 54 compared to 85 the previous year. Let's see, burglaries or robberies, we had 1 armed robbery compared to 3 the previous year. Residential burglaries, we had 109 compared to 117, being a 7% decrease. Let's see. illegal use of weapons. We hear gunfire that goes off, and that's reported.
Yeah.
People call in things, and a lot of times, often our law enforcement calls it in.
Do Natchitoches have the
Shot
technology for the shot if a shot is fired?
We do, but the thing is here's one of the things you have to keep in mind. By the time you fire something and it triangulates or gives you acknowledgement that there was something going on, we've actually already received calls in most of the cases.
Okay.
So, but that technology is available. It's helpful, but often our law enforcement who are out patrolling, doing their job, are hearing it. They're reporting it to dispatch, and units are going. We've had conversations in meet and greets and public meetings where people will go, I don't understand why all the police officers you'll see 5 units, they'll show up, they're going there, because you got to keep in mind, if someone's shooting a weapon, a weapon's there for protection. Some people use them as hobby, just to target shoot, but they're usually a weapon is for violent. It's a violent act, no matter if it's justified or not. We're trying to get resources there to make sure we can stop the situation from escalating, and also make an arrest if it's someone violating the law.
Right. It seems like these type of activities take place more in the summertime. Is that a fact?
Yes, sir.
And let me ask you this. Here we are in the middle of the winter talking about this, but the summer is coming up. And there was a program back when I was with the North Street Boxing Club. And the late Harry Graham and I forgot which chief was police at the time. And we talked with the chief at that time, and he got some funding for ASP, I think it was called, Accelerated
Street Patrol.
Street Patrol.
Or some people call it additional street patrol.
I
participated in it.
Well, you might have been one of the officers that was participating when you was just starting off. But anyway, it was a great program. And I mean, during that period of time, it only lasted like 60 days or 90 days, I think. It didn't last long.
Yes, sir.
But I would think that if you could plan ahead, especially with the summer coming up, and have those guys visible, and I mean, they tagged everything. I mean, if you had a broken headlight or a tail light, or if they saw a broken window in a building that they usually patrol by, they investigated and stuff, and it really helped back then. And I hope that possibly that you can initiate something like that again.
We actually do different versions of that. In the past, we've done action, where it was a combination. It was a group effort from the sheriff's office and the police department. We also have what's known as VCAT, which is Violent Crime Abatement Team, which is comprised of state police, sheriff's office, and the PD, and along with several other agencies. We do those operations during the summer, and most of these operations, whereas ASP was not, they're grant funded. So, and we have which is a violent crime reduction grant that we got $300,000 for. A portion of that, $90,000 of that, is dedicated just for conducting violent intervention. And so we have the funding there, and often with the ASP team, that was done because we would pull people from a shift, make a shift, and institute that. I've tried in the past to try to create a consistent team that would do that at all times, proactive, and have those there versus cannibalizing, because most of the time with a shift, you have go-getters that are on that shift, and when you take them and put them on that group to work in the different time periods, it does create a deficit there, because now people start noticing, hey, I didn't see as many units patrolling here. But we do hear exactly what you're saying, and we do utilize that approach, because with the longer days, you have more people out, and idle minds create problems. So it was quite effective.
Is there, that you can tell, is there any organized gang activities in the Natchitoches area?
There are multiple groups of individuals that associate with name monikers, and that those individuals are being, as part of our violent crime efforts, they have been identified. We work with our federal partners. Those groups are identified. We are monitoring activities, because often most of these violent offenses are occurring because someone from one group said something about someone in another group. Then they take some action, they have a fight, and then they retaliate against one another. If there's a death that takes place, the other group feels that they need to retaliate against them, and that's where we see these spikes. Our efforts in law enforcement are to try to interdict and disrupt that.
Okay, we're going to take that up after this break because I want to ask you some questions about what we are discussing now. And we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
When you hear that children are waiting for a stable, loving voice to speak up for their best interests, and then it becomes your time. What started out as a feeling that maybe you could make a difference becomes the difference. Change a child's story. There's a child waiting for a volunteer like you.
For more information, call CASA of Natchitoches at 318-238-2446 or visit www.casanat.org.
Having an insurance agent that treats you like family and offers trustworthiness, advocacy, and consistency is hard to find. J.W. Odom and Associates consistently educates and advocates for our clients while continually reinforcing our commitment to build relationships based on trust. As an independent insurance agency, J.W. Odom and Associates provides a variety of carriers which afford our clients the best choices to protect current assets, future income, and family legacy. We offer business, homeowners, auto, church, health, and life insurance. For a quote, call us now, 318-467-6282 or jwinsurance.com. Want to stop in for a visit? Our office is conveniently located at 119 Royal Street here in Natchitoches. Again, that number is 318-467-6282 or jwinsurance.com.
And now back to Talkback Natchitoches at 5 with the editor, Randy Stelly on 95.9 The Bounce.
And we are back. One question that I want to ask you. Recently I know that we've had some homicides and stuff, and the reason why I ask you about gang activities. And let me play a scenario that I've seemed to think about when I heard about certain activities with individuals being murdered. And if you have people dealing in illicit drugs and stuff and what have you, and they done business with people from out of town, they done business with maybe a connection from Houston or Dallas or from other parts, and they get involved and maybe don't come up with the money, or they misplace the product, as they call it, and stuff and what have you, and these guys come in and deal with these folks, and then they leave, and that seems to me would be a very, very serious issue as to try and bring these people into justice. The homicides, some of the homicides that you have not solved, is that part of the problem that you have in solving these unsolved murders?
I would hate to speculate on that. A large part of the unsolved murders some of the issues we've had, and the reason why we were so successful last year and moving forward, even with the two that we've had so far, we were getting the participation from stakeholders, basically the community, and providing information, and then us being able to obtain evidence when we get there to those crime scenes where we're able to take some action, because we have to not only develop probable cause, get the information, we have to actually be able to present this information to the district attorney so that they can do what they need to do to prosecute it, because we're just the input process, but we have to do our due diligence to collect everything that we can, because if they're unable to solve that case beyond a reasonable doubt, we can't bring a case that doesn't have sufficient evidence. And so that's why we plead and implore with the communities to don't try to help someone out by, if there was a gun there because they were involved in shooting at someone trying to defend themselves or whatever the circumstances. Don't modify that scene by trying to move that or move items or clean things up. Let law enforcement do what they're trained to do. Let them respond. Let them come out. If they come and ask you a question, everything, they're doing their job. Because we've had people say, no, I'm not saying anything. Y'all do your job. Well, our job is going around asking questions, going around checking for camera footage, asking victims what's going on, and often, unfortunately, victims will kind of meet us with the animus, I'm gonna take care of myself. That's not the way we disrupt and create the environment where it's safe and people don't have the fear of the retaliation. So in saying what you alluded to as far as with members coming from different locations, keep in mind, we do not live in a dome. We have local cities, Shreveport, Alexandria, New Orleans, Dallas, Baton Rouge, Houston. I was on the U.S. Marshals Violent Offender Task Force for several years, since 2007. And that's where the U.S. Marshals would come in and capture or look for to apprehend very violent offenders, some of the most heinous people. And often people would run here from different places because they think this is a rural environment, a rural area. And with that, they bring their problems that we have to contend with. And us being a rural department, smaller departments, not Houston, not Dallas, we have to step up and deal with that. And of course, that's why we always ask for the communities to help us, because we have limited resources, and we use our federal partners, our state partners, and our local law enforcement to try to interdict these things and prevent issues from occurring.
You got some questions?
Well, in the meantime, while you're looking at the questions that they're asking, Chief, let me say this: Crime Stoppers is one of your partners, and let me give y'all the Crime Stoppers telephone number. It's 318-238-2388. So if y'all have any criminal activities or anything like that that you would like to report, get in touch with Crime Stoppers, and they'll be able to help you out, and you might be able to get compensated for doing it. So, Chief, there's a question, I can't read it from here, but what are they asking?
They're basically trying to find out whether or not a person who's above the age of 18 can own a firearm if they don't have felonies. One thing, they had concealed carry for all that, changed the game for law enforcement. Because before, if I saw a bulge, I could take action, and now it's a little different. We can't just do a Terry frisk on someone. We have to have some information, and then the way the law was written, it's coded a certain way that allows for not only a handgun but other type of weapons to be carried. So someone who's carrying a backpack, we have to develop what's known as probable cause in order, or a reasonable suspicion that police stop and detain these individuals and talk to them. So they say all the time, people are walking up and down the road with these weapons. Well, we're looking for certain things. We're looking for indicators that can give us the opportunity to stop them. But juveniles cannot own firearms. They can't have those, and then to conceal them on their person, that creates another area for law enforcement to using their training and experience to be able to interdict and stop that. It is not against the law for a person who lawfully can have, and I would encourage everyone to read the law, because some people misinterpret what was passed and they take actions that can get them in a bind. They show up with weapons concealed at locations that don't allow them to have them, and that in itself creates a problem. But at the same time, going back to the fact that we have some people that I think there was a question about with cameras, and for the City of Lights, cameras help because they're just like we wear body cameras. That way, because somebody used to always tell me there's three sides to every story.
Oh, well, Chief, they got an internet pundit that comes on all the time and says that all you do is watch the cameras. And they say that you know everything that goes on in the city. But to get back to those people that have worked with you with the violent offenders task force and stuff, outside the marshals and stuff, you know that we have quite an international community here in Natchitoches. We got Asians, we got Arabs, we got all kinds of people, Latinos and stuff and what have you. Have there been any, especially what has been in the news, have there been any ICE activities here, and how do you handle that as Chief of Police?
Well, first of all, we have had ICE that have come to our community. We've had some arrests that were made. We are no different than any larger city or what you see is going on up in areas that usually make the news. The thing is that we we've been fortunate to not have some issues that present themselves to where someone's hurt and trying to flee from the federal authorities, trying to execute their responsibilities. We are bound by just we have an actual, we're not a sanctuary city. We in Louisiana, and at least in the city of Natchitoches, we support our local law enforcement and even our federal partners that do their job under the law. So I can't stress that because we've been cooperative. State, if they come in and ask us to assist, we do that. We have what's known as good faith. When someone sends us a warrant and say that they have something, we check it in the system. It says it's a valid warrant. We'll make an arrest, but we of course follow our oath. We will protect, because even a suspect has rights. They have rights and they deserve protection. Once I put handcuffs on a person, they're our responsibility. So no one's beating up on anyone. No one's doing anything outside of what we were trained to do. And that's, we've been fortunate. We have not encountered that here in Natchitoches.
Well, describe your leadership style and how it fits in with the culture of the department. I mean,
well, I actually had mentioned this before. My leadership style is two ways. I was in narcotics for 23 years. I was on the SWAT team since its formation.
Excuse me for interrupting you here, but it seems to me that I was doing something with the newspaper some years ago at the police department. You wrote grants, didn't you?
Yes, sir. I do.
You was the grant writer for the police.
I still am.
Oh, you still
I still am.
So you're the one that's still getting the money in. Well, that's cool. Yeah, okay. But I apologize for interrupting.
There's no problem. And what it is being a member of SWAT, commander for SWAT, and also the other roles that I played, you have to be able, an effective leader can change gears. You can have someone that can bark orders all the time and just saying, do it this way, do it this way. That may be great in a situation that requires, you got an active shooter, you've got some type of activity that requires some directed approach. But a lot can be accomplished by using a democratic style when it comes to what things can we do and working together to move the needle and everything. So when it comes to things that we've been doing, we've changed some things at our department. We've moved things forward. A lot of that's input coming from our actual officers, wanting to change up the brand, requests to get different style equipment, things that help them do their jobs effectively. Recently, we just were able to fortunately get approval from the council and supported, of course, by the mayor, of getting our officers some of the basic essentials that they need to have, like tasers. Believe it or not, that's a department that started. We were the first law enforcement agency in this parish to have tasers. We were having to check them out. So now each one of our officers will have that as a tool, because that's all it is. It's
Are
a
they
tool.
wearing body cameras?
They have body cameras. Fortunately, back in 2014, right when the the Ferguson situation was going on, I had already written a grant for digital evidence recovery and for body cameras. So we started our body cam policy back in 2014 before it became mandatory. And every one of our officers has those, and that information's backed up in the cloud so they can't lose it, like some other locations have had that, because that's evidence. That not only can help clear up any misunderstandings, it also gets to the root of a problem that, where people are saying something took place, and as I said before, there's always three sides to a story. One person's side, the other person's side, and then what actually happened. And those cameras are essential because they alleviate that. You can cross-examine them all you want, and the thing is, they're going to show you what happened.
And not only that, citizens now with these iPhones and stuff, it's hardly anything that happened with somebody not picking up their phone and filming it. And we got questions that coming over the internet. However, we would love to hear your voice over the air. And would you please, if you have any questions or comments, please give us a call at 318-354-7712. My friend, I know that, listen, we see his name all the time, my friend Michael Burnett, and I hope that maybe he would call in and contribute to this conversation, because he's well versed. This man is a brilliant law scholar, and I'm sure that he could, add to this conversation. What are the biggest challenges facing the Natchitoches Police Department right now, and how are you addressing them?
Well, one of the biggest problems is going to just be the manpower and retaining and retention of experience. People don't realize that you could have a person that's got years of knowledge and experience, but we lose that due to money and other, I guess you could say, room for growth. Because if you go to a larger department,
Right.
you want to be a helicopter pilot. Guess what? You have that opportunity. So unfortunately, we get people, we're training ground, and they go right over to another local agency that pays more, or they go to the state or other law enforcement entities, other places. And if we don't have anything to offer them, it's hard to keep them there. And the biggest problem is that if you put all that training, the getting them ready to do the job, them gaining the experience and developing people, developing the routes and knowing who and what they're doing in a community, to lose that is detrimental, because now we do not have that information. And as we have a department that's getting older, we lose experience from retirement, from attrition, from ailments. And when you lose that experience, now that person that you could say, hey, you know so-and-so's son. Oh yeah, that's such and such. You've lost that as well. So we're playing a constant game of catch up. And when we get new people, we have 5 people in the academy that just started that's going to get trained for 16 weeks. And if I can keep half those people for longer than 2 years, I'm doing good.
So that leads into the question, what is your plans for Natchitoches Police up over the next 3, 4, 5 years?
We've been hitting our recruitment hard. I know you see the signs, you've seen the commercials. We're trying to incentivize. One of the things, and we've had it for years, we incentivize almost anything that we can. Unfortunately, the state was providing some money. We were able to advertise that, hey, we have a $11,000 starting bonus, basically $5,000 from state, $6,000 from us. The state basically didn't renew that funding, so now we only have the $6,000 that we offer. We offer the education incentive, and then there's some other incentives such as physical fitness, and then we try to motivate people to get involved in other things that can allow them to not only build their portfolio and learn a skill set, they're doing us a service by actually participating in these different type of activities, because things that we have grant funded, such as the Violent Crimes Task Force, and things, that money's there, and it gives them the ability to go and work in that, actually do something proactive, and it's not at a detriment of the city's budget, because the federal government's given that to us in order to actually focus on an issue that we have, which is violent crime and the drug trade that actually exacerbates that violence.
Do you still have the auxiliary police that comes in that is volunteer and stuff and what have you? Do y'all still do that?
Here's the thing, sir, and they passed a law that actually proposed it after the Alton Sterling killing down in Baton Rouge.
Oh, yeah.
There was legislation that came out and it got passed in 2018. Each year, that law would require that all reserve officers would be required to be post certified.
Certified.
And so that law got kicked down. They kept pushing it, even though it was approved. They kept pushing it until, guess when? January 1st, 2022.
Oh,
my first January of being chief, they eliminated our ability to have reserve officers that could work and not be fully post certified. So now what they've done, after realizing they did create a monster, because I started as a reserve and it was doing it for free. Now most reserve operations would pay in order to try to keep people, because we were losing people to civil defense because they were paying, so they started paying. But the problem that exists now is that most people cannot take off for 16 weeks to go get post certified. So now they've changed the law from being 1 year requirement to 3 years requirement, but you still have to get post certified in order to maintain that. So we have 3 reserve officers.
Okay, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about community policing and trust with the community.
Are pests trying to take over your home? Don't let ants, roaches, spiders, or any unwanted intruders make themselves comfortable. Call the local experts at Terminator Pest
Any
Management.
other questions?
We deliver fast, effective, and affordable protection for your home so you can relax, knowing the pests are gone for good.
So
Take
they
back
probably
control
have some.
today.
What I've been doing with
Call
the grant
owner
money
Preston Durr at
is trying to fill in
318-664-2988.
areas. I would look
Terminator
at
Pest
cameras in
Management.
especially
Eliminate the
our
problem.
hard hit areas.
Opioids are a class of highly addictive narcotics, including prescription pain relievers and illegal substances like heroin and fentanyl. These drugs can dangerously slow down heart and breathing rates, potentially leading to fatal overdoses. The Louisiana Office of Public Health found that opioid-involved deaths increased by 269% from 2018 to 2021. In 2023, opioids were responsible for 80,081 overdose deaths in the United States, compromising over 75% of deaths by drug overdose. Here are 5 actionable steps to address non-medical opioid use. Educate your children about drug use to raise awareness and prevent experimentation. Safely store medications and dispose of leftover prescriptions to prevent misuse. Collaborate with doctors to develop safe pain management plans, especially for children in pain. Seek help if you suspect non-medical opioid use by your child. Learn how to respond to an opioid overdose emergency effectively. Please contact youth and families. Empowerment services at 337.
Somebody's asking for the phone number again.
1415.
That phone number,
Together,
I'll type it
we
in.
can work towards combating the opioid crisis and supporting children and families. This message was brought to you by CAMT Community Development Center with funding from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention.
And now back to Talkback Natchitoches 5 with the editor, Randy Stelly on 95.9 The Bounce.
Welcome back, and before we get into talking about community policing, we had someone was asking you about the cameras in the neighborhood. Could you kind of elaborate on what's going on with that?
As you know, yes, downtown we have cameras everywhere, and then in most cases, a lot of the buildings around town, we have community cameras that have been placed and that they're in different locations, and we have been fortunate to have those. Most of those, not most, those all have been purchased through grant funding. So as grant funds have come in, we've actually placed different devices in different locations, and law enforcement utilizes them to make sure everything's okay. And it's also supplemented by our interaction with different partners in our communities that actually have set up and programs such as Rings Neighborhood, also them being able to send in information, because often we will canvass areas. People can register their cameras with our office through a system. We have a reporting applet that when you go to the website, you can actually register and show that I have a camera, so that law enforcement knows they can come directly to you. Seeing some things that we're looking into doing is with some local businesses, partnerships, so that they can share their feeds that give us that ability to see and monitor those areas and keep an eye out for different things. Because first of all, just like if you go back to the approach, if someone's walking on your street 2 o'clock in the morning, you don't know who they are, you probably need to call the police. And we always encourage people, you can call, you can use the Crime Stoppers. We just need to know. We cover 26.3 square miles with usually 6 or 7 people working. That's a large area to patrol. But at any moment of the day, if you call the police, they're coming. And usually they're going to come, and multiple people are going to come. We got the communications. We just recently upgraded our radios and everything. We have the communication. We will come, and if we can stop these people from being in areas that they're not supposed to be, because chances are if they're walking around that time in the morning, they're going to break into something.
Yeah, I call them dope hoppers.
Okay.
You know what a dope hopper is? That's a person that goes around and pulls the door handle on any car that they come by, and if that door open, they're going to search that car and stuff and whatever. And steal,
yes,
especially if you have a firearm or something in that car or something like that, and they'll get it.
And people take for granted them calling, not giving their name, but saying, hey, there's a kid down here with a black shirt on, such and such, pulling on door handles. Our law enforcement are able to go right there and address that situation. And often they catch someone in the act, or they've already committed a crime on other vehicles. Now we've identified who's doing it, and we're able to take action. But to do, they say, if you see something, say something, that works. That works. So going to those communities, having those those devices, having just people who are always looking, sharing that information with law enforcement, help make areas safer. Because you got to keep in mind that person who didn't break in your stuff, they broke in your neighbor, but you don't want to be involved. Think about this: they may come back and break into your residence later. So.
Hello, you have a question?
As far as intervention programs for...
What's your question?
Go ahead. What's the question?
Okay, the question is, what businesses are doing to actually improve, I guess you would say, with assisting the officers with helping to prevent the crimes? Because I also know that there have been crimes on Front Street, but there's been crimes pretty much on the other side of the bridge, which is located towards 5th Street and going on. So what businesses are there on that side that are assisting the officers in helping with those crimes? Because my son was murdered on the opposite side.
Your son was on the west side of...
Going towards Texas Street. I'm Natalie. Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Okay, Miss Natalie, he'll address that.
I believe the question is what businesses are sharing their information with us as of today.
Yes.
I said that.
Yes.
I think maybe there was a misunderstanding. I said when he was asking me what programs are we looking forward to moving toward and trying to incorporate, is that we were going to try to start having implementation of businesses sharing, giving them the opportunity to share their camera feeds with us so that we would have that ability to see what's going on and actually access that. So I think there was a misunderstanding there, because these are programs that people who already have cameras in place can sign up and actually share with law enforcement. Now, when I was alluding to people registering their cameras, say for instance you have a doorbell camera, you have the ability now to go on and register and say that, hey, I have a camera at my house, so that if we have a crime that takes place in a particular area, we're able to go and contact you and say, hey, can we access the feed that you have? Now, what I was alluding to is trying to incorporate as a future plan is to have where businesses already have agreements in place. They have a server, and it's actually a technical term, but it's a Connect server that would allow us to get that data feed to come into our location, so that our NetCom, our communicators out at NetCom that works 24 hours could have a feed or maybe a view of an intersection that always has a lot of activity or traffic or concern of loitering that could be watched real time, and depending on the way the system's configured or their willingness to share, that data could be stored. But we don't have that in place at this time.
Okay, so you guys, that's what I guess I was, the question I was directing it to is because I currently live in the city. I'm not in Natchitoches anymore, and I actually do work in the field. So what I guess I would be saying or suggesting is that our community in Natchitoches was able, like how we have lights here that have like walkers, due to the city being so small, would we be able to get a grant where we're able to post those in different neighborhoods that are hot?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what I guess I was referring or relating to, is that if the demographic shows that one area is more potent or hot than another, how would we be able to obtain the funding to put these cameras on top of the lights and the light poles that are in our communities? Because a lot of people don't trust officers. So in order to build that relationship, or how would you incorporate that, I guess, into getting funded?
Yes, ma'am.
For the city.
It's basically, and we've done this with the approach of utilizing funds that are made available through the Bureau of Justice Assistance Program. Our Violent Crime Reduction Grant actually provided $73,000 for the purchase of these different type of surveillance or crime intervention devices. and we actually have purchased and have these items that are being deployed. So, and that's for that particular, what you just referred to, is these things are being placed in locations that have that high instance, just knowing that, hey, there's a potential there. It's not to infringe on people's rights. It's to cover an area that's public, and we have taken that approach. That is what we've contracted through the BJA program to get devices and actually utilize those. We've been actually applying for funding and getting access and getting those systems built out, because typically most of the devices you would see were downtown in the Front Street area and things like that. But we do and have, and that's an ongoing program, because we do not, unfortunately, have unlimited amount of resources that they'll give us for our community. And hopefully we'll get to a point to where we have a community. There was a new subdivision that was built, and that thing has cameras at every corner, so that when they have an issue, they call the police. Those cameras are there to document what happened, because often when the police get there, the assailant may be gone or the incident's already taken place. But guess what? Now you're able to pull it up on the camera and say, yes, that person just did this, and let's find them. We got a description of the vehicle. You're not having to approach a witness and say, who did it? And you know, often we get it. Law enforcement get the fact that a lot of people don't want to get involved because they see a person go to jail and they see that person get out, and if they understand how it works, if that person's given a bond and they can make that bond, they get out and then they get their opportunity to go to court. That court date might not be set for a long period of time. And so if you're really fearful that that person's going to come back or address you and try to get you to change your mind, you rather not be involved in that process at all. So we get that as law enforcement, but we also offer other tools such as Crime Stoppers that allow you not to even be involved. And the number's been given out as 318-238-2388. You can use that. You're able to send information. No one can backtrack and find out who you are, and you can share it and help law enforcement make an arrest. And of course, there's a way that they actually, Crime Stoppers itself, can provide a reward for that information that leads to an arrest. And we still, as law enforcement, cannot and have no way of finding out who gave us the information. But it's something we can use.
Well, thank you very much for your call, because we have to take a break right now, and we would certainly appreciate you contributing. And anybody else would like to contribute, please give us a call at 318-354-7712.
Thank you for liberating.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
There was a question about
How do you get
what
help
intervention
to a child in a
programs
foster care
are available
system?
for youth.
It starts
Honestly,
hard.
you got boys and girls,
When you hear that children are waiting for
big
stable,
big
Well,
sisters.
we'll get into that with
best
you.
interests.
Well, he could talk to him right here.
Time.
He can still talk to
Oh,
us
yeah.
while we're on break.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
Difference becomes
Tell them the question.
difference.
Yeah.
okay, the question was, what intervention programs are available for at-risk youth? They have the Justice for Juvenile, what's the program? Because they used to have it down in Carville, and they only do it out of Alexandria, but it's the work. It's not going to come to me. But we have boys and girls. We have the Big Sisters, Big Brothers program. They also have the is it Teen Center. There's other things that you can participate in that give you the opportunity to go and stay off the streets and stay away from people who are trying to peer pressure you into doing something bad. I'm trying to not JAG. It's not. Oh,
Well, in the
That's from
meantime,
school.
we're organizing the Survive the Stop program, which I've talked to you about,
Yes, sir.
and Reverend Harris, the two Reverend Harrises is going to participate and stuff and what have you, as to where we can get to have these youngsters intermingle with police, and maybe that would
And
help.
now back to Talkback Natchitoches
Youth
solve some of the
challenge.
problems. Youth council.
Yeah, youth challenge, and
on
that's
95.9 The Bounce.
And we're back, and we were getting into community policing. And let me ask you, in the big cities and stuff, the police officers are always driving around in cars, and the only time you see them is when something happened and they're jumping out of the cars and stuff. and I think that I have seen in the summertime where you have officers on bicycles that be riding around the community and like at J.W. Thomas and stuff in those areas and stuff. Look like to me that is a solid program of having these officers in being seen and being active in the community when there aren't any crime involved.
Yes, sir. And that's a key point, because a lot of people they have different meanings or different understandings of community policing. But as we alluded to, law enforcement working with the community and becoming part of that community, that only happens when they know, and to build that trust, they know that you're a person. So we've been concerted in our efforts to try to participate in all the functions that are going on, not just show up just to do security. We have people, we do our annual thing, but that's just one time a year, the National Night Out. That's just a one-time thing. So we've made it a point to do different things like giving out popsicles, just trying to get kids, especially, because I'll say it on here, all too often parents take for granted when they tell their child, you see that person right there, that officer right there, they're going to take you to jail and everything. You do something. Don't tell your children that, because that builds a fear at a very young age. And you know it's hard to break some things that you know, if you're scared of water because you suck some up your nose you're going to have a fear of that. Yeah. And that's what you're doing to a child who may need actual help. Law enforcement's there. There's no ethnic group, gender, socioeconomic class that has no person that screws up. So law enforcement does have some bad apples, but you can't write every one of the law enforcement who put that uniform on and put their lives at risk for a low amount of pay each and every day. And those people will put their lives down on the line for a child that they do not know. So please do not have those children believe that that badge and that uniform is something bad. I'd rather them go to one of our law enforcement officers to get help versus going to that molester that's got candy and a puppy and saying, help me find my other one. And it's because people take that slight action thinking it's a joke, and they don't realize the damage they do. Later on, when they get older, instead of going to that law enforcement officer to say, hey, there's something bad happening over here, or these people are approaching me trying to get me to use something that could cause or hold on to something that could get them in trouble and affect their whole life and their trajectory. So let's do away from that. But at the policing, the community policing, yes, having those officers out there on those bicycles, having them do. We used to do foot patrol when we had 33 reserve officers that worked for us for free. They would do the foot patrol in certain areas, certain locations. Now, they shouldn't always. The only time they see law enforcement is us jumping out. That's why, at least as chief, while I've been here for the short duration, I've tried to make sure that our faces are there at those organizations, not because we have to be there for security. We're there because we're participating in it. We're setting up booths. We're giving out stuff, making sure there's an interaction. So
yeah, prior to June 19th, Juneteenth becoming a national holiday, I used to put on the Juneteenth celebration here at Ben Jonson Park. And the police department have always been cooperative, and they were very visible and interactive with us there, and it was highly appreciated. And that's why this program that we're trying to develop, the Survive the Stop, where we can get police officers into the schools and have them interact on some activities and stuff so they can be familiar with policemen and let them know that they are their friends and not an enemy. And Chief, I certainly do appreciate you coming and spending this time with us, and hopefully in the future on a regular basis we can have you so that we can discuss these things, and so that you would be available to the community for like we did today, and I certainly do appreciate it. Yes, and this is a wrap up, and we really appreciate your time, Chief, and talk with you guys tomorrow, same time, 5 o'clock, the Talk Back Natchitoches evening.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. It took me, I was trying to think, I was like, man, And I met the guy that's over it because he was with us in Cancun. The Youth Challenge program. They used to have it, and it's based out of Carville. And the only thing is, the way they segmented the program up, they only have locations in Shreveport and Alexandria. So if you want to sign up, you have to go to Alexandria from the Natchitoches area to get your at-risk 17-year-old, or it's only for 16 and 17-year-olds.
Well, you know, I was a big contributor when I had the newspaper to the Boys and Girls Club. And of course, it had a problem where it was shut down for a while, and they
I was on the board. I was all those years. I was with Peggy and all them, and Nick, and then you know,
I used to give healthy check.
Me too. I'd have my table steak and burger and all that. And you were like, my wife now, she was like, why are you giving them so much money? I'd rather give it to them because I know where my money's going. You know, and the thing is, if I just get taxed at the end of the year as a single, I had no children, so they would tax me heavily. So,
but the problem was when you have one individual that dominates an organization, when that person is no longer involved, sometimes the organization can't survive. And I think that might have been an issue.
Yeah, it became very difficult, and you know they vitalized it.
But anyway, the Boys and Girls Club I was able to meet that boy out of New York, Spike Lee.
I asked Miss Peggy, I needed a picture because when I was standing there beside him, I'm like, this dude is so tiny and everything. It was like, I didn't realize he was that short.
They said thank you. You did a great job. Thank you for answering their questions.
Oh yeah, and you know the thing is if they have more, have them reach out.
Right, and instead of typing it, call in. We want to hear your voice. All right.
You might be nervous.
See you guys later. Have a good evening. It's off.
I remember the first time they